Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we'll be going over the updates that we have on the 2024 Ram 1500 EV. Before getting the video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get right into it. So basically up to this point, we didn't really have a whole lot in terms of information on the Ram 1500 EV. All we knew was that Ram was basically going to make a fully electric version of their 1500 series truck, and that it's going to be a 2024 model year released in 2023 or 2024. And that was pretty much it. But we have some updates. So Ram basically did this whole survey system where they asked current Ram customers what they would want out of an electric pickup truck, and basically what they wouldn't want as well. And on top of that, they have been studying the Ford F-150 Lightning and the new Silverado EV. Now the Lightning is officially on the market, and so there's a little bit more to be studied with that. The Silverado EV, on the other hand, isn't officially on the market yet, and so there's only so much that Ram can do with that truck in terms of studying up on it. But between the comments they've gotten from consumers that currently own Ram trucks and the information they've gotten from the new F-150 Lightning and from the Silverado EV, Ram has come up with some pretty crazy stuff in terms of what they plan on doing with this new 1500 EV. So one of the biggest recommendations was for Ram to have a solid amount of electric driving range with this new Ram 1500 EV. If we look at the Silverado EV that hasn't been released yet, Chevy says that they are aiming for about 400 miles of range. If we look at the F-150 Lightning that has been released, the base format has 230 miles of range, and then the upgraded format has over 300 miles of range. Well, Ram says that neither of those amounts are nearly enough in terms of what their consumers actually want. And so Ram is aiming for 500 miles of range across the board. Like, that is their baseline amount of range. And there are talks of potential extended range versions which will have 600 to 700 miles of driving range, which would be absolutely ridiculous for any EV, let alone an EV truck. And so expect range to be kind of like a top priority for Ram with this new 1500 EV. Now, on top of that, towing was another thing that people cited as being very important for them in terms of, pickup truck ownership, which completely makes sense because that's like what pickup trucks were pretty much invented for. And if you look at the, again, Silverado EV and the Ford F-150 Lightning, both of them, Silverado EV is aiming for 10,000 something pounds, then the Ford F-150 Lightning can tow 10,000 pounds. And so Ram has kind of seen that and gone, okay, well, we need to have our truck be able to tow at least this amount. But the biggest deficit with electric trucks, and the Rivian R1T has shown this and the Ford F-150 Lightning has shown this, is driving range while towing. And this is something that a lot of people have put towards Ram as a big concern for them, is that they want to be able to tow a lot with this truck just as much as they can tow with a regular half ton, but they also want to be able to actually get to places without having to charge every 20 miles. I mean, there was a towing test that TFL did with their Lightning. Go look it up. You guys can see the amount of range that they had with the truck when they had a heavy load. It was just very disappointing. And their F-150 Lightning has the 300-mile range. It's the extended range, right? So it's not like they have the 230-mile Lightning. They've got the full range Lightning, right? So anyways, Ram is going to have a huge focus on towing range. And so basically the truck already is going to have more range than the Silverado EV and then the Ford F-150 Lightning EV. But on top of that, it's going to have significantly more towing range. And basically Ram is aiming to make it so that this truck can have just as much towing range as a regular 1500 with a load. Now, obviously the downside is going to be charging, but that's where Ram is also trying to, set themselves apart. They are focusing heavily on making it so this truck charges at an insanely quick rate so that people can just be in and out of the charging stations. Now, something that will be a little bit of a difficulty for Ram to deal with is just the current charging network. Now, obviously this truck isn't being released today. It's not going to be released for, basically a couple of years. And so there's time for that charging network to be built out, but it still probably won't be built out enough for them to have enough fast charging to be able to actually have people use this crazy fast charging that they plan on having with the truck. So again, in concept, it sounds awesome that this truck's going to have tons of towing range. being an EV, which usually isn't a thing. And then on top, that's going to charge really quickly, but charging infrastructure isn't there. So that is kind of a little bit of a, I guess, hole in their whole plan. But continuing along, something else that people commented on is they don't want the truck to look super weird. And the F-150 Lightning has proven this point, because if you look at the new Silverado EV, it has gotten a lot of negative feedback in terms of the styling. Some people absolutely love it, but a lot of people are like, what the heck are you thinking, Chevy? Whereas what Ford did is they were pretty conservative with the styling. They decided to make the F-150 Lightning look just like any other F-150, except a lot of it's closed off, and there are some slight design tweaks, but overall, it looks like an F-150. So Ram is taking note, and obviously they got to make this truck as aerodynamically efficient as possible to be able to get the crazy range that they want, especially while towing. But at the same time, they understand that people don't want a crazy looking truck, and so they're going to probably make this truck look as close as they possibly can to a regular 1500, so that people don't feel like they're departing too much from a stylistic perspective. Another thing for people was interior quality. This is something that Ram has had a heavy focus with in terms of their current 1500 series truck, and people said they want that to continue into the EV lineup. So people want to be able to get an interior that's just as nice with the new Ram 1500 EV as they currently have, again, like I said, with their regular Ram 1500. So expect the Ram 1500 EV to have, some base model interior options for people that just want a budget EV work truck, but also to have, crazy luxury options like what you have with the current Ram 1500 Limited. But I'm sure it'll look a little bit more futuristic, a little bit techier, and I'm sure that's also why Ram is releasing a fully digital gauge cluster for the 2023 model year with the Ram 1500. Is they're slowly integrating some tech that's going to be in the new 1500 so that people aren't having to make too much of a jump to go to a fully electric truck. Now, the next thing that isn't actually a priority for Ram, but I want to talk about is acceleration with this truck. So if you look at the new F-150 Lightning, you look at the new Silverado EV, they're both kind of having this like horsepower, torque, and acceleration war, and Ram isn't going to be focusing on that. Now, the new Ram 1500 EV will for sure have a substantial amount of horsepower and a substantial amount of torque to be able to tow what it's going to tow and to be competitive. But at the same time, that is not at the forefront of their focus with this truck. Because when you focus purely on acceleration, then sometimes you lack in other areas, i.e. towing, in terms of towing range, and in terms of quality on the truck, and all sorts of things. And so I'm not saying that the truck's not going to be fast, but it's not necessarily a focus, and that is apparent with the current Ram 1500, because the current Ford F-150, EcoBoost, and Chevy Silverado 6.2 V8 are both faster in a straight line than the Ram 1500 with the 5.7 Hemi. But what Ram is focused on is, again, interior quality, styling, towing capability, reliability with the engine, and that same focus is going to continue into the Ram 1500 EV as well, which I think is the right route to go, because truck buyers frankly don't care about how fast the 0 to 60 is. They care, again, about how much is the payload, how much is the towing capacity, and how far can I drive while I am maxing out said payload and towing capacity. So I'm glad that Ram is actually listening. Now, with all of that being said, one downside that I do see with the new Ram 1500 EV that is apparent with the new F-150 Lightning and the new Silverado EV is going to be the price of the truck. Initially, it is going to be a pretty expensive truck, especially compared to a regular Ram 1500. Ram 1500 prices are going to be substantially more in a couple of years compared to what they are now, because that's just kind of how things are going with the crazy inflation we've been having. And the Ram 1500 EV, because it contains a lot of parts that seem to be having even crazier inflation compared to regular truck parts, is going to experience quite a bit of, I guess, of a price increase compared to what you have with current trucks, even current EV trucks. So I would expect the Ram 1500 EV to start somewhere around the $50,000 range, not around the $40,000 range like what you have with the current Lightning. And I'm sure that the Lightning is going to be in that $50,000 range starting price in a couple years anyways, so it's not like Ram's going to be way more expensive than the competition. But fully loaded, it's going to be probably over $100,000, just like the fully loaded Silverado EV. And so, you know, it's going to have crazy range. It's going to have crazy towing capacity. It's going to have crazy range while towing and really fast charging. It's also probably going to have a massive battery pack. I didn't really talk about that too much in the video. Obviously, automakers are trying to go towards smaller and smaller battery packs, but the technology is just not here yet. So the Ram 1500 EV is going to be very heavy with a huge battery pack, most likely. We don't have that confirmed yet, but it's going to have a lot going for it. But it's also going to have a pretty hefty price tag as well. So let me know what you guys think about the new Ram 1500 EV, if you think you're going to go for it or if you're just going to stick with your 5.7 Hemi. See you guys.